In this video, you will learn everything you need to know to get started on the story of Demacia. Hello everyone and welcome to a new video series where we cover the basic story of each region of League of Legends. This series will be aimed at people who don't know a lot about the lore of League of Legends, and they are looking for a good starting point. But if you already know the lore really well, at least we can use this video to summarize all the lore that remained canon. So, without further ado, let's have a look at our first region, Demacia. Because Demacia is the youngest region of Runeterra, the history of Demacia begins during the Rune Wars, which was about 1000 years ago. I don't want to bother you too much with the full history of Runeterra, because Demacia has a complicated story on its own, but the TLDR version of the story is that celestial beings created Runeterra using the world runes. But after an accident, these runes were lost and scattered across the very planet they created. Millennia passed, ancient kingdoms fell, the Darkin Wars turned the world upside down, and new kingdoms rose. And it was after Mordekaiser tried to conquer the world that the Rune Wars truly began. Around the world, people started discovering the world runes, and allegedly, in self-defense, people started using them to nuke their neighboring nations. Soon, citizens of every bigger city were in danger, and people started fleeing away from all the big regions. Eventually, as these refugees fled to the west, they stumbled upon an unusual forest that had the ability to absorb magic. It was a safe place where the Rune Wars couldn't harm anyone. Later, these refugees figured out how to combine the bark of these trees together with ash and limestone to create petricite, a white stone-like material that mitigated all magic. And it was with the help of petricite that the kingdom of Demacia was built, free from all magic. That's why Demacia's buildings are mostly white. It is mostly petricite. The person responsible for the first settlements in the petricite forest and the person who oversaw the construction of Demacia was Orlon. Orlon was a man who wielded a legendary hammer that gave incredible power to its rightful owner. However, Orlon wasn't the rightful owner, and he was on a quest to find the right person. After he died, Poppy grabbed his hammer to continue his quest. However, it is likely that Poppy is the rightful owner, even though she doesn't know it. A couple of years later, Demacia became known as a safe haven from the Rune Wars, and people from all over the world traveled here. One such important man was Kilem of Mount Targon. Since the Rune Wars really raged all over the world, even people around Mount Targon weren't safe. And so, in hopes of saving their village, and despite the fact that they were expecting a child, Kilem and his pregnant wife Mira climbed the legendary Mount Targon. There the gods would help them. When they reached the peak, Mira was chosen as a vessel for the aspect of justice. And soon after that, the twin sisters Kayle and Morgana were born. Since Mira was now a fearsome warrior greater than any mortal, Kilem began to fear her new divinity. The Rune Wars were still raging, and Mira was fighting battles on battlefields far away. So in order to protect his two daughters, Kilem waited for Mira to leave once more, and he fled with both daughters across the sea. From this point on, we don't know what happened to Mira. Kilem raised his two daughters in Demacia, until the day Mira's blade fell from the heavens and landed in front of Kayle and Morgana. It split in two and each one of the sisters picked up one half. That's how Kayle and Morgana became the twin aspects of justice. Kayle quickly embraced their new calling, and she rallied an order of judicators on the peak of Silvermare, with a man called Ronas being Kayle's champion. Together, Kayle and her new followers would enforce the law and punish all sinners. A few battles later, while protecting their kingdom, Kayle and Morgana became known as the Winged Protectors. And they are the reason why Demacia uses a lot of angelic wings in their architecture, including Galio, but more on that later. On the other hand, Morgana was trying to understand the sinner's point of view, instead of punishing them straight away. And for this, Kayle's judicators started distancing themselves from Morgana more and more. And in the end, because Morgana was acting against their laws, Ronas himself tried to imprison Morgana. But since she had no other choice, Morgana had to kill Ronas in order to protect the innocent. This caused Kayle to go on a justice-driven rampage, and she called a rain of divine fire on the city of Demacia, allegedly to purge the city of all sinners. Unfortunately, Morgana couldn't stop her sister's rampage in time, and their father, Kilem, died that day, crushed by the crumbling city. Kayle smote him down for the crime of stealing his daughters away from their mother. After this, Gale flew into the heavens, Morgana went into hiding after she threw away her blade and bound her wings with chains, and the people of Demacia had even more reasons to fear even the divine magic. Over the centuries, the stories of the twin aspects became just that, stories. But even there, Demacia remembers only one winged protector, with Morgana being all but forgotten. As centuries passed, the people of Demacia started looking for ways to protect themselves beyond their patricide kingdom. That's why the legendary sculptor Durant was commissioned by the king to create Galio, a massive patricide statue that they could bring with them when fighting on faraway battlefields. There are two reasons why Galio looks the way he looks. Because it happened so long ago, depending on which Demacian you ask. Some say his wings represent the winged protector, but others say he was sculpted after the native silverwing raptors. No one really knows what exactly Durant did to achieve this, but legends say that if Galio absorbs enough magic, he comes alive. Now, of course we know that patricide doesn't just mitigate magic, it absorbs it. But magic doesn't make patricide sentient. If that was the case, all buildings would start moving when under attack. So it is obvious that Durant did something special with Galio. We just don't know what. The only hint we got was an unreleased image of Durant's blueprints. Here we can see an image of Swain's demon. Interestingly enough, the same image was shown in Lux's comic, but there it didn't show the demon. So still, it is all just a massive speculation. And as Swain says,
his secret died with his sculptor.
A few more decades later, after the creation of Galio, the modern history of Demacia begins. And here is where all the present stories happen. Because Demacians in general have very bad experience with magic, either because of the rune wars or the ascended that were meant to protect them, they became paranoid. And the new law bans the use of any magic whatsoever. What's worse, you don't even need to use it. You are not allowed to even be able to use magic. So if you were born a mage, tough luck hiding it, because Demacia has ways of finding out what you really are. Demacia has their own special enforcers called the Mage Seekers. Their job is to find mages inside Demacia. The Mage Seekers wear blue capes and silver half masks, so it is easy to distinguish them in the crowds. But what makes them special is that they usually carry a weapon of their choice and the Grey Mark. The Grey Mark is a disc made out of patricide, so it absorbs magic. And the Mage Seekers carry this Grey Mark near people to see if they are mages. Now, if anyone finds out you are a mage, one of three things can happen. Option 1. They kick you out of Demacia. Normally they just exile you beyond their borders. But here we should also mention their special case of exile. This isn't normally done to mages, but should anyone in the Demacian military severely break their laws, for example people died because they didn't follow an order, they would be sent specifically to Mount Targon, because the punishment for soldiers who break the laws is to climb the mountain. And usually, this was a death sentence. Of course, most Demacian outlaws never climb the mountain. They just flee and start a new life somewhere else. But for example, Tariq did climb the mountain. He faced his punishment for letting his comrades die, he conquered the mountain, and he became a vessel for an aspect. Honestly, it is just cool to see that even though the legends of the winged protectors are mostly forgotten, Demacians still remember their roots, and they use Mount Targon as a part of their culture. Anyway, let's get back to the punishments. Option 2 when someone finds out you're a mage. They try to purge you. Demacians see magic as an affliction, and they try to cure it as if it was a disease. And most of the time, this means torture. By far the most cruel way to cure magic is to make the victim drink a patricide potion. This is a simple concoction that has pieces of patricide in it. When a mage drinks it, they feel pain similar to their soul being ripped from their body. It's because magic is quite literally part of their body, and patricide would be ripping it out from the inside. The sad thing is that magic can't really be purged, so in the end the victims either die of exhaustion, are executed, or they are exiled. The last option when someone finds out you're a mage is that they straight up kill you where you stand. Oftentimes this is done by a mistake. Because Demacians see mages as extremely dangerous, they don't hesitate to attack at the slightest sign of danger, even if nothing is happening. So with all of this said, is it safe to say that all Demacians are controlled by prejudice towards mages? No. And here is where the plot twist happens. The interesting part comes in when you realize that a lot of the nobles and highborn Demacians are mages. And it is these hidden highborn mages that imprison other poor mages that got discovered. This naturally fills Demacia with hypocrisy, and it is actually the main plot point of Demacia right now. This entire conflict really started to surface when Silas came into play. He was a boy with the ability to see mages. In his eyes, people afflicted by magic would glow brightly. So of course the mage seekers brought him to the capital city and used him for their cause. However, not only could Silas see the mages in the poor villages, but he also saw all the hidden highborn mages. And that was a problem, because this knowledge gave him a lot of power when he grew up. But Silas wasn't the only one who could literally see the hypocrisy. Because mages generally stay in hiding, they live in smaller villages and they help poor communities. Usually they use their magic to grow crops faster, hunt for food, or protect the village from monsters. As a result, these smaller villages appreciate mages, and they see the good in them. So right now, Demacia is in a civil war. The nobles of the capital city enforce laws that ban all magic, while the common people fight for the mages' rights, because they are tired of their children being taken away simply because they were born afflicted. This is all the basic information you need to understand all of Demacia. From this point on, no matter what Demacian story you decide to read, it should always make sense to you. But there are more interesting connections you should know about. So let's now explain the map of Demacia a little bit more. By looking at the map, you can see that Demacia is surrounded by mountains. This plays into the overall theme of living in isolation from all magic. The capital city of Demacia is simply called the Great City of Demacia. The reason for this is because Demacia was built as a single settlement in a forest. That's what Demacia used to be. It was just one place, but it grew into a nation over time. The northern mountains are shared with Freljord. Because of this, every now and then, the northern cities have to repel raids from the Freljordian barbarians. And ever since Sejuani became the leader of the Winter's Claw, these raids became more frequent. But the most famous place for repelling Freljordians isn't in the north. It's actually a coastal city to the east. Dawnhold became famous after members of the legendary Dauntless Vanguard set entire fleets of Freljordian ships on fire. After this event that is now known as the Battle of Dawnhold, Freljordians rarely send their ships to attack Demacia. North of Dawnhold in the mountains, we can find Fosbarrow, named after Fossian Crown Guard, who was Garen's and Lux's great-grandfather. This place can sometimes be called the Haunted Town, because it was haunted by a certain nightmarish demon. East of that we have High Silvermere. Not only is this the place where Lux and Garen grew up, but this place is also known for its Silverwing Raptors. Also, don't forget that according to the legends, Silvermere is where Kael started her Order of Judicators. Further up to northeast we have Uvendale. We know this town as one of the places where Poppy tried to find the rightful owner of the Hammer of Orlon. Also, this town is where Quinn was born. Next we should go further east, beyond the borders of Demacia. You can notice that there is a place that doesn't belong to any region. Primarily that's because it's a contested area, but it's also because there is actually a small nation called Arbormark. And even though the Arbormark have powerful mages as their leaders, they've been allied with Demacia for many years. In fact, in a recent story, after the Demacian civil war started, Demacia asked Arbormark to send over one of their trusted mages to help them figure out how to stop Silas's rebellion. And of course, this Arbormark mage wouldn't be harmed as long as they respect Demacia's laws. Going a little bit south from the northern mountains, there is supposed to be a town called Dragborn. This is where Silas was born, but as of right now it is not shown on the map. Next we have Greenfang Mountains. This place is special because this is where Galio was awakened for the first time. South of the Greenfang Mountains we have Torbicia, a city that was recently ruined by an earthquake. Lux traveled here with the Illuminators to help its citizens. The Illuminators are a group of people that help the sick and the poor. Even further south from that we have Renwall, a castle where Jarvan helped Shyvana kill her mother, the Black Dragon Yiva. And lastly, we need to talk about a very special place that is still a little bit of a mystery. If you have seen the Call of Power cinematic, where Ryze is collecting world runes all around Runeterra, you may have noticed that at the beginning he walked in a ruined ivory forest. This of course was the ancient Petricite forest that Demacians harvested to craft Petricite. And it is under these trees that Ryze is storing the world runes. We can assume he stores them here because Petricite mitigates their magic. However, we are not sure if Ryze knows that the trees are absorbing it as well. and that he is slowly making a world rune empowered forest. Also, in the cinematic, Rise reveals an image that probably shows the past. But as of right now, we don't really know what it means. And we don't even know who built the Demacian vault. The last thing I want to do in this video is to quickly mention all champions connected to Demacia. Because sometimes people get surprised when they learn that their favorite champion belongs to a totally different nation than they thought. So, here's the full list. Poppy was there when the first Demacian settlement was constructed. Gale and Morgana were big parts of old Demacia. Lux and Garen are members of the Crown Guard family, which is a Demacian noble house. Lux is also a highborn mage in hiding. But Garen is not. Garen's ultimate is actually not magic. It is a reference to the fact that Demacians revere the aspect of justice. So in reality, the giant holy blade is just Gale answering his prayers. Silas escaped the Demacian prison and he kickstarted the Mage Rebellion. Jarvan IV is a Demacian prince. His full name is Jarvan Lightshield. Sona was an Ionian orphan that was brought to Demacia by a rich musician. Sona is also technically a mage in hiding. Even though Lucian spends most of his time traveling around Runeterra and hunting the undead, he also comes from Demacia. Fiora comes from House Laurent, which is a Demacian family of elite duelists. Quinn is a hunter from Demacia's mountains. Shyvana simply stumbled upon Demacia when she was running away from her cruel mother. She and Jarvan helped each other and now Shyvana is allowed to stay in Demacia. But again, she is hiding her magical form. Vayne is also from Demacia. She is a monster hunter who's on a quest to slay the demon that killed her parents. Of course, that demon is actually Evelyn, who has her own cult of followers in the mountains of Demacia. Xin Zhao was an Ionian who was captured by Noxians and used in battles against Demacians. After he learned that he was supposed to die in the first battle against Demacia, Xin Zhao decided to swap sides, and King Jarvan allowed it. So Xin Zhao now fights for Demacia. Galio is a petrified colossus created by Durant. He mostly sleeps near the capital city, and he is rarely awakened by magic. Nocturne is a demon who haunted Phosborough. Tariq was a Demacian soldier who didn't take his duty seriously, and he was sentenced to die at the peak of Mount Targon. Vel'Koz is roaming the contested areas east of Demacia, and occasionally he attacks Demacian settlements. And finally, during his adventures around Runeterra, Ezreal also visited Demacia. He tried to impress Lux, but Lux barely remembers who he even is. And this, ladies and gentlemen, should be all the information you need to know about Demacia. From this point on, it really doesn't matter what stories you read. Everything should fall in place. If I can recommend a few stories, go ahead and read the story of Silas. Right now he is the most important Demacian because he is pushing the story forward. And close behind him we have Lux, because she is pictured as the main character of Demacia, and she really underlines what it means to be a mage in Demacia. With that, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you like the concept, feel free to recommend what region we should have a look at next. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.